Now, last week, the draft data protection bill was circulated in St. George's in advance of its first reading in Parliament next week. Data protection bills, in principle, are necessary in this hyper-networked age in which we now live. Roughly 70% of the world's population is now online, and the same can be said for the Caribbean. In fact, over 19 people in the Caribbean use the internet. This is an exciting development given the significant socioeconomic benefits that can be derived from its increasing connectivity. However, the risk to privacy also increases with the number of people online, coupled with the growing availability and accessibility of online platforms and apps. Data protection laws provide for the protection of personal privacy by prohibiting the unlawful use or disclosure of personal data. The laws, in essence, seek to provide certain rights of individuals, of data subjects, and impose specific obligations on people who possess personal data outside of personal use. And while it is important to have such laws in place, these laws must, however, not be written in such a way as to infringe on the right to privacy or to give a green light for any government to act in ways that are in abrogation of the citizens' constitutional rights. In 2020, the opposition National Democratic Congress raised the alarm concerning sections of the COVID-19 control bill, understandably so. In fact, they said it was unconstitutional, and they joined a slew of civil society activists to protest sections of the legislation.
We have had over the years to fight for this government to pull back legislation. We all remember Section 6 of the Electronic Crimes Act. All of these things work together to undermine our democracy and our democratic institution. And that is why we have to maintain the opposition as a people. And let me make it clear, this is not a political issue. This is not a partisan issue. This is a national issue.
I also challenged then Attorney General, the former Attorney General of Grenada, Mr. Darshan Ramdani, about sections of the bill that concerned the national community.
Closely, what is a state of emergency? We have, Mr. Bob, we have a state of emergency right now. If you look at the draft bill replicates almost all of the provisions of the regulations.
No, Mr. Attorney General, I'm sorry, I don't think that's accurate. Now let's get to some...
replicates almost all.
Almost all. So let's get to some of the specific measures that it is not replicating, right?
Thank you, Mr. Bob.
Let us begin in miscellaneous part 5 in section 24, and I will quote now. It says that it shall be the duty of every police officer to enforce, in parentheses, using reasonable force if necessary, close parentheses, compliance with this act and with any order, instruction, or condition lawfully made, given or imposed by any officer or other person under the authority of this act. And for such purpose, any police officer may enter any premises without a warrant, unquote. Now, Mr. Attorney General, this particular provision sounds unconstitutional. I think the permission for a warrant
Hold on, Mr. Bob.
to be granted by a magistrate's court.
Hold on, Mr. Bob.
Because the bar functions through its executive council. And while we strive always to manage the varying views of members, that is the process. And the AG well knows that we took issue from inception as to whether he could locate this particular emergency within the Emergency Powers Act. If you read the Emergency Powers Act, a real question emerges as to whether it is a one-size-fits-all and whether you could fit a public health emergency within the intent behind the Emergency Powers Act.
If the opposition to this bill was purely about the bill, and the bill is withdrawn, then why are we demonstrating? I mean, seriously, Mr. Speaker, why are some of my friends,
Now, with respect to the bill that is about to go before Parliament this week, we believe that Section 33 and 45 must be revisited. As an independent journalist, I see many red flags with respect to ways in which Section 33 can abridge the freedom of the press. Moreover, the Grenada Constitution already protects the exchange of public information. Further, there is already an Electronic Crimes Act in Grenada. The Constitution of the State of Grenada also protects the private exchange of information in Section 10, subsection 2b, which reads, quote, "The protection of freedom of expression is reasonably required for preventing the disclosure of information received in confidence," unquote. As was done in 2020, we trust that those who were opposed to portions of the COVID-19 control bill would not be hypocrites and call for a thorough recall and revision of sections of this bill before it becomes law of the land. Again, we do not oppose the bill in its entirety, but we believe that sections of the bill ought to be properly revised.